Hello, sports fans. It's me, Sportsman Z, Bob Zulke. And today I'm here with Game 4 of the American League Championship Series between the Baltimore Orioles and the California Angels. Currently, the Angels are up 2-1 in the series. Winners in the series were Jim Palmer in Game 1 against Nolan Ryan, and that is today's matchup, by the way, in Game 4. And Dave Frost and Jim Barr were winners for California. The last game being won by California 1-0, with, I believe, Dave Frost on the mound. So we find ourselves here in an possible elimination game if Baltimore can't win. They have to win this game to keep the series going, because this is the 1979 rules, and under the 1979 rules, the American League Championship Series at the time was the best of 5. And whoever ends up winning this series will go on to face the Cincinnati Reds, who have already advanced by beating the Pittsburgh Pirates in a 3-game sweep. All were very good games, and if you want to watch any of those are on my channel. I suggest you go back and watch them. They were all very good games. And but here we are. We are in Game 4. Before we get started, I want to give a shout out to a young White Sox fan who has started a channel, I think, fairly recently. The name of his channel is White Sox Talk Live, and if you want a link to that, it's on my homepage under my featured channels. And he does an array of things, talk about the White Sox players, how he feels about various players making the Hall of Fame, like Harold Baines and Frank Thomas. And he does a little bit of history. He's got a 1919 White Sox video in there talking about the Black Sox scandal. So, you get a chance, check it out. Go over and watch a couple of videos. Aren't very long. And wanted to give a shout out to him because I'm a White Sox fan. Us White Sox fans got to stick together, because I don't think there's many of us. Maybe not. But anyway, we will get on with this series. The visiting pitcher for the Baltimore Orioles, who are visiting, that is Jim Palmer. And there is Jim Palmer's card. And like I said, he won. Game 1 was a very close game. And here is Nolan Ryan. Nolan Ryan will be pitching for the California Angels, and his card is slipping there, but you get the idea. And I broke out the big board for this because we recently had some work done on our basement, and I had the basement cleaned up, and so here we are out in the main part of the basement. And so I broke out a big card table, as you can see, and that allowed room for the big board. So we will be using that, and I'm looking forward to using that instead of being in my cramped office to do it. So the Orioles are visiting, so they'll be up first, and that's Al Bumbry coming up, and he gets a 5-6, and that's a strikeout. First strikeout for Ryan. And again, we expect many of them because this is Nolan Ryan. Ken Singleton is up, and he gets a 1-6, which is a ground ball shortstop A. So he bounces out 6-3. And that brings up Eddie Murray, the first baseman, and he gets a 4-8, and that's a strikeout. So Ryan strikes out 2 of the 3 batters he faces in the first inning, and Baltimore gets no runs. That brings up Rod Carew for the Angels. And he gets a 4-6, and that is a pop out to second base. Pop out to 4, 1 away. Carney Lansford gets a 5-6, which is a double 1-3 or a single. And that's going to be a single for Carney Lansford. First hit allowed by either pitcher, and the first certainly then by Palmer. And Brian Downing is up, and he gets a 3-8, which is a single double asterisk and puts runners at the corners. So all of a sudden, Palmer, who won Game 1, is in trouble now. and he allows his second hit. So the Angels have runners at the corners with 1 out and Don Baylor up. He gets a 5-7 on Palmer, which is a ground ball to the second baseman. The second baseman for the Orioles is Rich Dower, and he's a 2, and that's a 3. So 3 and 2 at second base is an out double play, and they are out of the inning. So 4, 6, 3, and no runs for California. That brings up Gary Renicky for the Orioles in the top of the second, facing Ryan, and he gets a 1-5, which is a strikeout. Third strikeout for Ryan. Lee May comes up and he gets a 6-11, which is a ground ball to the pitcher, and Ryan, all pitchers are considered to be a 2 fielding in this particular set. I don't know if that's changed, but I think it has, but they're fielding 2 in the 79 set, and 16 and 2 is an out. So Lee May bounces out 1-3. And then Doug DeCinces comes up and he gets a 5-3, which is a strikeout. So Ryan struck out 2 guys in each of the first 2 innings. And we go to the bottom of the second. Bobby Grich is up for the Angels, and he gets a 3-5, which is a fly ball left field. Fly out to 7, 1 away. Dan Ford gets a 5-9, which is a strikeout, and that's going to be Palmer's first strikeout of the game. And then Rick Miller gets a 6-6, which is a fly ball left field B. And no runs come in for California. And that brings up Rich Dower for the Orioles in the third. 3-7 is a single 1-8. And he will be lining out to third base. Line out to 5. Rick Dempsey is up. Rick Dempsey gets a 2-3, which is a fly ball left field B. Fly out to 7. And Mark Belanger gets a 3-8, which is a fly ball left field B. Left fielders have been busy in this game so far. That brings up Larry Harlow for California in the bottom of the third, leading off the bottom of the third. He gets a 6-4, which is a home run 1-9 or a double. And Larry Harlow hits it deep and gone. And the fans here are real happy to see that, as California takes a 1-0 lead. And Palmer, that's the third hit allowed and the first earned run. And then Jim Anderson comes up. He gets a 5-3, which is a ground ball to first. That's Eddie Murray. Eddie Murray is a 1 at first. That is an out. So Jim Anderson ground out to 3. Rod Carew comes up. He gets a 3-7, which is a walk. So Rod Carew is aboard. For Carney Lansford, and he gets a 1-8, which is a ground ball third base A double play. So 5, 4, 3. But the Angels do get a run on a Larry Harlow homer off of Jim Palmer. That brings up Al Bumbry, and he gets a 2-5, which is a walk. And Bumbry has not been on base a lot this series, so it's good to see him finally bust out and at least get a walk. He is an A stealer, and he will steal on downing, and he does make it. So Bumbry with the stolen base. Singleton up, and he gets a 5-9, which is a ground ball second baseman. Second baseman is a 2. That's Bobby Grich. 13-2 at second is an out. No runners on, so nobody goes anywhere, and there's an out. So that's 4-3. Eddie Murray up, and he gets a 2-9, which is a home run, 1-12. And that is a home run. Eddie Murray. It's a 2-run home run and gives the Orioles a 2-1 lead. Let's see. 2 RBIs and a run for Bumbry, who walked. And that was the first hit allowed by Ryan, and it results in 2 runs. And that brings up Renicky. Renicky gets 3-9, which is a walk. So now everybody's getting on against Ryan. Lee May is up. He gets a 3-5, which is a single. Second hit allowed by Ryan, and that's Lee May. So, or wait a minute. That's Renicky. Renicky is a D. He's not going to go, or he's a running 1-14. They're going to keep him there. Doug DeCinces up. 2 runners on, 1 out. And he gets a 4-8, which is a strikeout. Fifth strikeout for Ryan. Rich Dower up. He gets a 3-7, which is a single 1-8. And he gets the line out to third that he got last time. But the Orioles take a 2-1 lead. And coming up in the bottom of the fourth, to lead off the bottom of the fourth, is Brian Downing, the catcher. And he gets a 1-6, which is a ground ball shortstop A. 6-3 is 1 away. Don Baylor, the DH, is up. He gets a 4-11. And that's going to be a ground ball to the pitcher, who is considered a 2. And that's going to be an out. So Don Baylor bounces out 1-3. And Bobby Grich is up, and he gets a 3-9, which is a walk. Bobby Grich going down to first, and that brings up Dan Ford. 5-6 is a double 1-3 on Palmer, and that is going to be a single double asterisk for Dan Ford. Sends Grich to third. And Rick Miller coming up, and he gets a 2-9, which is, or 2-8, which is a strikeout. So the Angels threaten there late after 2 outs, but they don't get any runs. And we go to the top of the 5th. Rick Dempsey coming up for the Orioles. 5-8, and that's going to be a strikeout on Ryan's card. 6th strikeout for the big train. And Belanger comes up, and he gets a 4-11. And that's a catcher's card. The catcher is Downing, and Downing is a 3 at catcher, and that's a 9. 9 and 3 is a pass ball followed by pop out. So that's 2 away. And that was Belanger. Pop out to 2. And that brings up Al Bumbry. And Al Bumbry gets a 4-5, which is a ground ball second base C. So 4-3. No runs come across. For the Orioles, we go to the bottom of the fifth with the Orioles leading still 2-1. Larry Harlow up, and he gets a 1-8, which is a ground ball first base B. So 3-1. Jim Anderson gets a 4-7, which is a single. So Jim Anderson on with a base hit. Fourth hit allowed by Palmer. Rod Carew up. He gets a 1-11, and that's going to be a ground ball pitcher A plus injury. So that's a double play. And we got to roll for the injury to Carew. That's an 11, so he's going to miss the rest of this game and the next game, I believe. 11. No, 2 games. Yeah. All right. So he misses this game and well, I don't think it'll go 2 more games. But anyway, we need a. There was. Yeah. So this was. What was that roll? 111. Pitcher. So 1, 4, 3, and we're going to have to get another first baseman for the Angels. And that is going to be that's going to be Willie Mays Aikens. Who is a first base 4, and since the DH had been Baylor, he hasn't played maybe even at all unless he pinch hit in the series, and I don't remember if he did. But the Angels get no runs there, and then we go to the top of the 6th. Ken Singleton up. And he gets a 6-9, which is a walk. So Ken Singleton is aboard. And that's the 3rd walk by Ryan. Eddie Murray up, 6-7. That's also a walk. Ryan having a little bit of control problems, which he was also known for. I mean, let's be realistic. That brings up Gary Renicky, and he gets a 4-5, which is a ground ball second base C, so that moves runners to 2nd and 3rd. With 1 out. The Angels are going to bring the infield in because they really cannot afford to let too many more runs score. Lee May up, and he gets a 3-12, which is a line out to 3rd base into as many outs as possible. So Lee May lines out to 5, and I don't know, line out 5-4, whatever. But all I know is Baltimore did not score anything because of that line out. And that brings up Carney Lansford. So Ryan got out of a pretty big jam right there. He was lucky that the ball was hit right on the screws at somebody directly. And Carney Lansford comes up for the Angels in the bottom of the 6th. And he gets a 2-7, which is a strikeout. 3rd strikeout for Palmer. Downing up. He gets a 3-9, which is a single. So that's his 2nd hit of the day, and the 5th hit allowed by Palmer. Don Baylor up, and he gets a 4-4, which is also a walk. or actually that was a single before by Downing. But that is a walk issued by Palmer and his third of the game. 2 runners are on with only 1 out. Bobby Grich up. 2-9 is a single, and they're going to see if they can send that runner. We're going to take a look at who it is. 6th hit allowed by Palmer. And that's Downing, so we're just going to hold. They're going to hold runners, 1 out, bases loaded. Dan Ford up, and he gets a 410 on Palmer's card, which is the third base X. And the third baseman is Doug DeCinces, who is a 2. And that's a 13. That's going to be big for the Angels. That's a 2-base error by DeCinces. So Dan Ford is on by an E5, goes to second. The run scores Downing and Baylor. Or no, just 1. Sorry, just 1. So the run scored by Downing on the 2-base error. Or no, it does. It does. The bases were loaded. So yes, so 2 runs do score on that. The error by DeCinces. And that puts the Angels back ahead, 3-2. And Rick Miller is up now with runners at second and third, and only 1 out. So the Orioles will bring the infield in, and that brings up the fly ball right field B by Miller. So that does score Grich. And another run, and that's an unearned. These have all been unearned runs, is that right? Because there was an error that caused all of them. Because this would have been the third out, so this one was unearned. And leave a comment about this, but I think because the original run scored when DeCinces made a 2-base error, those runs would be unearned as well. So Larry Harlow is now up. That was a sac fly. Larry Harlow up, and he gets a 5-7, which is a ground ball to second. Second baseman is Dower, and he's a 2. That's an 18-2 at second, which is an out. 4-3, but the Angels strike for 3, and they take a 4-2 lead in the game with Doug DeCinces, the GOAT of the hour, leading off here in the 7th, top of the 7th, against Ryan. 3-3 is a ground ball, third base B. So 5-3, 1 away. Rich Dower up, and he gets a 5-9, which is a ground ball, second base. The second baseman for the Angels is Grich, and he's a 2, and that's a 15. That might be something. That is a 1-base error by Bobby Grich. So Dower on by an E4 with 1 out. Rick Dempsey up. He gets a 3-9, which is a fly ball, left field B. Fly out to 7. And Mark Belanger up, and he gets a 2-8, which is a walk. So Mark Belanger, the weak hitting Mark Belanger, gets walked by Ryan. And that advances Dower to second. And brings up Al Bumbry, who has not been good this series at all. And he gets a 4-6, which is a strikeout. And he continues not being good at all. The Orioles get no runs there. We go to the bottom of the 7th. It's getting late for the O's. It's getting very late. And not only this game, but for the series. Jim Anderson will lead off, and he gets a 5-11, and that's a fly ball to left field. The left fielder for the Orioles is Gary Renicky, and he's a 2. That's an 18, a roll of 18 and 2. That's an out. So F7. And that brings up Willie Mays Aikens, the first baseman, on for the injured Rod Carew, and that's a 4-5, which is a ground ball second base, C. 4-3, and Carney Lansford. Carney Lansford with a 3-10 is a double 1-5 or a single. And he gets a single. Carney Lansford, however, has been very good this series. He's probably, I'm guessing he's hitting probably in the 400s or high 300s. Downing up, and he gets a 6-9 on Palmer, and that's a pop out to short. Pop out to 6. No runs come across. We go to the top of the 8th with Ken Singleton up. And Ken Singleton gets a 2-5, which is a strikeout. And yes, we are in the 8th, so it is getting extremely late. Ryan has to go the distance because the Angel bullpen really consists of Mark Clear and a bunch of stiffs. So we have Eddie Murray up, and he gets a 3-5, and he flies out to left field. Fly out to 7, 2 away. And that brings up Gary Renicky. If I can get a hold of the dice. 3-6, and that's a strikeout for Gary Renicky. And no runs in the 8th. Don Baylor in the bottom of the 8th. Facing Jim Palmer. He gets a 3-10, which is a ground ball shortstop A. 6-3, 1 away. Bobby Grich. Bobby Grich gets a 1-5, which is a fly ball to center. And then that brings up Dan Ford. And Dan Ford gets a 4-4, which is a walk. So Dan Ford on by walk. The 4th issued by Palmer. And Rick Miller comes up. He gets a 3-8, which is a walk. And Tippy Martinez is going to get up in the Orioles bullpen as Rick Miller walks, and it forces Ford to second on the 5th walk by Palmer. So Palmer has walked 5 and allowed 7 hits, uncharacteristic for Jim Palmer. Larry Harlow up, and he gets a 5-8, which is a strikeout. And we go to the top of the 9th now. This is it for the Orioles. The Orioles have got to have 2 runs right here, or the World Series will be the 1979 Angels against the 1979 Reds, which was completely opposite of what it actually was, because it was actually the Pirates against the Orioles. So Lee May steps in to face Ryan, and he gets a 3-4, which is a single. Mark Clear is warming up in the Angels bullpen. That's only the 3rd hit allowed, it looks like, by Ryan, if my scorekeeping is accurate. And Doug DeCinces comes up, and he gets a 2-4, which is a double 1-14. And that is a double. So now the Orioles have runners at 2nd and 3rd. Both are in scoring and tying position. DeCinces hitting a double, moving May to 3rd fourth hit. And that brings up the Sensei. No, that brings up Dower. Yes, that brings up Dower, and he gets a 5-6, which is a strikeout. So there is one out. Ryan with his 10th strikeout, and that brings up Rick Dempsey, who gets a 2-10, which is a ground ball, pitcher A. So nobody goes anywhere. And then that's going to bring up Belanger, and they're not going to let Belanger hit. So that was 1-3. There are now 2 outs. Both runners in scoring position. Belanger up. Belanger not hitting. Probably going to be Pat Kelly. Yes, it will be. Pat Kelly is going to pinch hit. It all comes down to this. Pat Kelly pinch hitting. Ryan is going to stay out there. They're not going to bring in Clear just yet. And Pat Kelly gets a 3-7, which is a double 1-18, and the game is tied. And it is. And Pat Kelly's at second. So Pat Kelly with a double. Ryan allows his 5th hit, 4th earned run, and now they will go get Clear. And they bring in Mark Clear. Try to secure this thing. Right, and stop any more runs from scoring. And that brings up Al Bumbry. And Al Bumbry gets a 4-12 off a Clears card, which is a fly to right. The right fielder is a 2. That's Dan Ford. That's a 12 and a 2. And that is going to be an out. So Bumbry continues his ineptitude in the postseason, but the Orioles do tie the game, and now they need a new shortstop. So Belanger is out of the game, and so is Pat Kelly, because Pat Kelly came on to pinch hit. So the new shortstop for the Orioles will be Billy Smith. And actually Billy Smith can hit a little bit too, but he's not much in the way of fielding at short. As his rating is a 4. And I'm assuming it's not the goaltender for the New York Islanders. So anyway, they have tied the game, and now it's the bottom of the ninth. The Angels can go ahead if they can score a run. And they are going to, I think they're going to pinch hit for Anderson. Let me take a look. Let me take a look at the bench. Yes, they will pinch hit for him with Merv Rettenmund. Pinch hitting and hitting for Jim Anderson. And he gets a 6-9, which is a pop-out to shortstop. Pop out to 6. And that's going to be it for Palmer. So Palmer goes 8 1/3. And they will bring in Tippy Martinez, who had been warming up. And that brings up Willie Mays Aikens. And he gets a 3-6, which is a strikeout. No, that was pop out 6 was over here. And Aikens with the K and Martinez with his first strikeout. And then that brings up Carney Lansford, and he gets a 5-9, which is a ground ball second base C. So he's out 4-3. And now we have to replace the shortstop with Bert Campy Campaneris. And he is a shortstop 4, which is why he hasn't been playing over Anderson. And that brings up Ken Singleton in the top of the 10th. And he gets a 3-7, which is a double 1-4 or a single. And that's going to be a double for Singleton. First hit off a clear. Eddie Murray up. They're not gonna sacrifice. 3-10. That's a fly ball right field B. Fly out to 9. 1 away. Gary Renicky gets a 3-8, which is a strikeout. And Lee May comes up and he gets 2-6, and that's a strikeout. So, no runs there. We go to the bottom of the 10th. And again, the Angels find themselves in a situation where they can win the game if they can score. Brian Downing up. He gets a 3-10, which is a single. Off of Tippy Martinez. Don Baylor up, and he gets a 3-5, which is a fly ball center field, so that's 1 out. Fly out to 8, 1 away. Bobby Grich with a 3-6 is a strikeout. Second strikeout for Tippy Martinez. And that brings up Dan Ford, and he gets a 6-4, which is a fly ball center field. So no runs in the 10th. We're going to go to the 11th. Fans here are getting an exciting game and some bonus baseball with Doug DeCinces up to lead off the 11th. And he gets a 5-6, and that's a strikeout on Clear's card. Clear with his 3rd strikeout since coming on. Rich Dower gets a 3-10, which is a ground ball shortstop. 6-3. And that brings up Rick Dempsey, and he gets a 3-6, which is a double 1-8 or a single. that's going to be a single. So there is one runner on with 2 out, and Billy Smith up, and he gets a 4-10, and that's a ground ball to the third baseman. The third baseman for the Angels is a 2. That's Carney Lansford, but that's going to be big. That's something. That's an error, I believe. It is a 1-base error on Lansford. So oh yeah, okay, Billy Smith and E5, and Al Bumbry's up. Al Bumbry with a chance to undo all that badness that he's been exuding for the Orioles, and he walks. So he does get a board, and he loads the bases for the Orioles here in the 11th. Clear with his first walk. Bases loaded, 2 out, Singleton up. And that's going to be a grand slam home run. Gone. Ken Singleton. And you have got to believe that Ken Singleton has really just iced this game for the Orioles with the way it's gone. So Ken Singleton with 4 RBIs, a run, a run, a run, and a run, clear, giving up a hit, and 4 earned runs. The bases are clear now. And Eddie Murray is out. And he gets a 1-7. That's a line out to third. Line out to 5, but not before the Orioles strike for 4, and now the Angels have to have 4 just to tie it, or the series will be tied, and we will have a Game 5. Rick Miller up. He gets a 5-2, and that's a ground ball second base. The second baseman is a 2, and that's going to be a 6-2. That's an out. So Miller is out. 4-3. Larry Harlow is up. He gets a 6-9. 6-9 on Martinez is a strikeout. And I realize that Tippy Martinez has gone a little longer than he usually would, although he did pitch 78 innings that year. And then there's a 1-9, and that's a fly ball by Campaneris to center field, and that is it. So the Orioles win the game by the score of 4, 6, 8, 8-4. The win goes to Martinez, who went 8, 1/3, 2/3, 2 2/3. And the loss goes to Mark Clear, who went 8 1/3, 2/3. Yep, same amount of innings. And with that, folks, we will see you for Game 5 and the deciding game in this American League Championship Series. But for right now, the series is tied at 2 apiece, and I will see you in Game 5. The Sportsman Z, Bob Zolke, signing off.